I'm glad to welcome you all. I can see everyone. Brest, I'm very glad you've joined us for the first time. Nizhny Novgorod, Odessa, Latvia, as always. Kyiv, Ukraine, Moscow Good People Club, Feodosia, Novokuznetsk, Sevastopol, Sochi, Izhevsk, Yoshkar Ola, Tuimazi. I don't know where that is.
It's in Bashkortostan.
Really? Good to know. Toronto. Very nice. Thank you for joining. Helen, what time is it there now? Almaty, Estonia, Omsk. It's a familiar table again. USA, Miami. It's also very nice to see you. Thank you.
It's 7 in the morning in the USA and Toronto now.
They're early birds, aren't they? Moscow, thank you. St. Petersburg, Ivanovo, the city of brides. By the way, I was in Ivanovo about 10 years ago and gave lectures there. They probably don't remember that. Kazan, thank you all. We probably won't be able to answer all your questions in one day. We have a very large attendance today. Let's do this. Those who are really suffering from loneliness can ask your questions. This is our topic for today. Who really feels that it's difficult? Who feels very lonely? Go ahead, raise your hands and I will ask you. I'll ask whoever I see first, then we'll gradually move on. St. Petersburg, good. Turn on your microphone.
Dr. Torsunov, I'm very grateful that you so generously share your knowledge with us and guide us. And I'm very grateful that you appeared in my life. Because I think it's very important for us now, due to the fact that modern culture and particularly family culture is quite low. Many people suffer from loneliness, don't understand how to build relationships, how to create families. So it's wonderful that we are here and we are expanding. Thank you, and I have a personal question. I was alone for many years. It was both internal and external loneliness, despite the fact that I'm quite a sociable person. I think it's somehow connected to my personal history. My family suffered from violence in the 90s. My father died a violent death, my sister was hurt. And I have this issue, particularly in relationships and particularly with men. I can't create permanent relationships. I often have dreams where I suffer from violence. For example, a man is always beating me. There's always some kind of violence in my dreams. I think I'm projecting this in my life. Well, now I'm practicing. I've been praying for 6 months, and I really hope that this will go away. But maybe there's still some kind of key to this.
All right, I understand your question. I thought about it while looking at you. It's a fact that you have a certain layer of violence. That means in your past life you experienced violence. In the life before that there was violence too. But 2 lives ago you committed violence yourself and you received such fruits for it. But you see, this is just a burden of fate. Dreams often point to something from the past, what a person has already lived through. You see, it's not the present, it's the past. And loneliness is always a certain internal burden. And it's always only an internal cause. That means there is no external reason. It's clear that our life now has many different factors that interfere with creating a family. But if there is inner strength, a family will be created anyway. You see, if we talk about fate, you have already overcome about 70% of the fate that you had in your past life, where there was loneliness. In the life before that, there wasn't loneliness, but there was a difficult family life. Because of all this, you have a very strong fear. Firstly, you are afraid of close relationships, and secondly, there is a fear of making mistakes. That's why you are trying to understand the person very deeply and clarify everything. This is your main problem, because in this world it's impossible not to make mistakes. It's impossible to build absolutely harmonious relationships. This is connected with our imperfection, because personal life always comes with very strong expectations, strong selfishness, and because of this, serious relationship problems arise later on. You understand? And you're already in advance not agreeing to the fact that there are no other options. Only holy people have relationships without any problems and with complete harmony. You know, almost no one has true closeness in their personal relationships. There is simply a desire to understand, to care, but closeness means very sincere feelings. These feelings are only possible for very strong people. Because any sincerity causes pain. You see, if sincerity is selfless, let's say I sincerely want to serve someone, then there will be no pain at all. But our sincerity is always self-interested, and self-interested sincerity is a very painful thing. If I sincerely say something about how I want to live, but this desire doesn't take into account the desires of others, even though I do it sincerely, it causes pain to everyone else. Because they also want sincere relationships. But in these sincere relationships, there is a very strong conflict. As a result, one person opens up their sincerity, while the other person becomes constrained in their sincerity, feeling injustice. And your problem is that you want something that's unattainable. Although you don't have this, there is such a concept as human magnetism. Inner strength, the ability to attract someone. I think that in this life, there were enough young men around you with whom you could have built relationships, but you just couldn't come to an agreement with them. This means that you idealize relationships. The kind of relationships you want can only exist in a monastery. You know what I mean? That means where holy people live, but there are no personal desires there, no family, no selfishness. Do you understand? Therefore, you need to take a step back now. You need to simply learn to accept people as they are. A good solution for you would be getting married on the advice of an elder, so that someone else makes this choice for you because you can't take this step yourself. You're afraid. You need someone to arrange your marriage. I can help you. When I come to St. Petersburg, find someone, bring him to the lecture, and I will arrange it.
Thank you very much. Definitely. And just one small question. More than a year ago, I left my partner. And now I've done a lot of inner work. And he informed me that he got married last autumn. And it seemed to me that everything was over. I feel that I've already let go of this connection thread, cleansed it. Everything is calm. He comes to my thoughts only with kindness. And he also wrote to me, saying that he remembers me with kindness too. But for some reason, he appears in my dreams sometimes, as if I'm with him. Is this just an illusion? Although I don't feel it internally.
Yes, this is an illusion and also a punishment. No one should abandon a person. You haven't yet cleansed yourself from these relationships. You don't understand that we don't decide. You say, I let go, but you have not attached yourself to him. That means God connects us and God disconnects us. He is still punishing you. He continues to punish you. You shouldn't abandon anyone. No one should ever abandon because it's wrong. You can live separately, but you shouldn't abandon a person.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
I don't see any preconditions for loneliness right now. It's more your worldview that's weighing you down rather than the power of fate. You can meet someone at any moment. You should set yourself up right. The right attitude is to be patient with a person. That means that you should set yourself up to be patient together, live together, and tolerate each other. You see, the right attitude is not about finding some ideal person right now. Such a thing never exists in principle. Because I repeat again, we are all the same. We are all egoists here on earth. And there are no people who would just give their life for us. We are all egoists. Everyone wants something from each other.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much.
Well, we've uncovered one aspect of loneliness a little bit. Good question. Who else is having a hard time being alone? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. We'll look at it. Study your situation.
Seems like in Latvia and Riga.
Yes, Helen, help me out. Yes, let them join in. Good.
Hello. I have such a question. The thing is, my parents separated when I was little. And since then, I've always been in the family. The family is very big on both sides. But I feel like an outsider. And I feel that I don't fit in with either half. It's also very difficult for me to build a relationship with my mom now. And I'm trying to find common ground with my dad. I sent letters, but I haven't received any responses yet. What should I do to make this feeling of being forgotten by my relatives somehow smooth out and go away? What do I need for this?
Do you have a husband?
Yes, as a result of attending your lecture in July. My boyfriend and I have already filed our marriage application.
Good. This question is more important for me now. I'm more interested in you creating your own family. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about your peculiarities. Your main peculiarity is that you have a very weak margin of safety in relationships. You can't spend a lot of time in relationships with someone, meaning throughout the day. It's not that you can't live with someone at all. It's just your personality. You get tired of relationships, you need to rest from them. And when it comes to your relationships with close relatives, especially with parents, they want to enjoy you and very much demand your attention. As a result of these demands, you lose strength quickly. You can't communicate for long, you simply get tired and run away from relationships. You run away from relationships and don't want to continue them. In other words, I understand that you have good feelings towards your relatives, but your problem is being near them. You have a very sensitive psyche. You just get tired and that's all. and you don't know what to do with yourself. Either force yourself to stay there with them or run away. That means that you have two options. You prefer to run away. That's the difficulty. What to do in this case? There is only one way out: to build relationships in the form of service. That means that you can simply give them gifts, wish them happiness, visit them, do something for them. For example, you came and cooked for your parents. When you're cooking, you won't suffer. That means you should do something. You can bring them pies, bring gifts, congratulate them on birthdays. But when relationship discussions start, you simply say that it's difficult for you to talk about this. There are two types of relationships. The first one is conversation, which is very difficult for you. Conversation is very hard for you. And the second type is service. And service you can do as much as you want. That means that you have no problems with this. You are very lucky in your relationship with your boyfriend, with whom you're creating a family now, because you're both not very sociable. That means he's on his own, you're on your own, and you live peacefully next to each other. In this regard, you have good compatibility. He's busy with something, you're busy with something. Most importantly, don't try to communicate too much. If you start trying to communicate too much, you'll get tired of each other, simply get exhausted from it all. You should have such a format where you serve each other, take care of each other, and communicate a bit. You have to give each other rest because your spouse is also tired of the relationship just like you are. If you give each other rest and accept that it's just difficult for you to be around people a lot, to be in communication a lot, in relationships, then you can live peacefully together for life. The main thing is to understand this point. And you also need to understand that you're both very sensitive people. This means that if, God forbid, you see that your loved one is hurt, you need to apologize 10 times to them. Don't be afraid of this because you're both vulnerable, and in vulnerability, you shut down. It's a peculiarity of your psyche. That means if something's wrong, you immediately shut down, and that's it. But you should just approach and apologize. If you follow this rule, you'll be comfortable with each other because you'll understand each other. Every person has a different kind of psyche, and sometimes a close person needs to practice asceticism to open the heart of their loved one. Someone needs an apology, someone needs a smile. For others, you need to do something else. That means you need to understand what the person wants, what they lack, and do it. You just shouldn't think it's humiliation. You have to be very delicate with each other, not impose unnecessary conversations, and know how to apologize. This is what's required in your family. That's how it is. And you also have to spend a lot of time in nature. Your body is exhausted. You're a creative person. You need to engage in music, drawing, or singing. I don't know, something like that, so your inner creative abilities can unfold. Then you'll live more peacefully. Would you like to add anything to what I've said?
I'm actually teaching, but I'm about to quit my job because I'm severely drained mentally and energetically from dealing with so many people.
You can teach one person. That means it could be some distance consultations. If you communicate like I'm communicating now, you won't get tired at all. Well, maybe you could do some online teaching and then you'll live peacefully and there won't be any problems. It's popular now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Torsunov. We'll work on it. Thank you.
Just understand that there's only one way out: to serve them, not to talk with them, but to do something. When they get used to this format, everything will be fine. Sometimes a person's loneliness is simply connected to their character traits. The person by nature just doesn't know how to make it work to be with everyone. Often people are very sensitive or uncommunicative. There are different variations of a person's mental nature that make it very difficult for them to be with everyone. And there are people who are the opposite, such chatterboxes. And this also causes loneliness because everyone gets tired of such a person in 5 minutes. Can you imagine living with them? Therefore, loneliness can also come from excessive sociability. Almaty, you're holding your hand up there. You can ask a question.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. I'm very grateful for your teaching, for this opportunity. I have this question. I've been divorced from my husband for 24 years now. We had a very difficult divorce. I was the initiator of this divorce. And since then, I haven't had any relationships.
You are an Eastern person. Eastern people can't meet others easily. You are modest. You cannot show off in front of anyone, in front of men, attract them somehow. Therefore, your only way to get married is if someone you know introduces you to a man, to someone Eastern like you, a modest man who won't go out to meet anyone himself. And they will bring you together this way. You will live modestly with each other. This is the only way for you to create a family. This is not a question of your bad fate that you can't have anyone. This is a question of how relationships should be built. Someone needs to introduce you. Let the Good People Club organizers find you and introduce you to someone. Since they invited you here, let them do it. They will find you some calm Eastern man who also lost his family at some point, and you will live happily. You don't have a seal of loneliness. You're just not the type of person who will go to nightclubs, restaurants, or anywhere else making eyes at everyone. You are a modest woman who doesn't like to draw attention to herself. This is the reason for your loneliness. That's why in the East there was a different type of family creation, a fundamentally different type. Women were always given in marriage in the East. I know many examples in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other cities where some Eastern women, beautiful, young, whom all guys look at, don't get married only because they are afraid to approach anyone. They maintain their purity. They don't want to build any wrong relationships with anyone. And in this situation, parents or friends should always get involved in relationships. People need to be introduced in this case. If a girl is too modest or a guy is too modest, people just need to be introduced to each other. And then there will be a good result. When such modest people are introduced, they will never separate afterwards. There are people who find it difficult to come together, but then they never separate. There are people who come together quickly and separate quickly. That's a different problem already. But this is your case. You are a very loyal person. By the way, it took you a very long time to get used to the fact that you got angry at your husband and left, and it took you 3 or 4 years to understand that you're living without him. You took a very long time to get used to it. Will you say something back to me or not?
Yes, there was a small delay. We didn't hear the answer.
What do you mean you didn't hear?
It stopped at the word get used to. There were some connection problems during the last minute.
Did you hear most of what I told you or not?
Yes, I heard everything. Thank you very much. I'm relieved that it's not my fault. That there isn't something preventing me from escaping loneliness. You gave me hope and faith.
You need help. You need to ask acquaintances, friends to introduce you to someone. You shouldn't do it by yourself. It's impossible for you to meet a man on your own. Simply impossible. If some stranger approaches you and tries to get acquainted, it will be even worse. He will ruin the situation because you won't accept a stranger. You need guarantees. If someone introduces you, it means this person who makes the introduction provides a guarantee, and you will try to build a relationship. But it won't work for you the other way. That's your character. You can't start a relationship with a stranger.
Thank you very much.
How was your family created? Tell me how you got married the first time.
We studied together at school, and I noticed him at school by myself. It was a childhood friendship. We wrote letters to each other. I moved to another city. We corresponded for a long time. Then we finished university. We started to date. He came to visit me. Only then I got married. I knew him for about 10 years while studying at school.
You see, that's exactly how it is. We've solved your question. Of course, you have to absorb this lecture too. I will be saying many important things about overcoming loneliness during this talk. But I've told you specifically about your peculiarity. During a lecture, you won't recognize your own peculiarity, but I immediately tell everyone their peculiarity is exactly what's holding them back. Come on, raise your hands. Who is lonely? What's holding you back? Miami, USA? Glad to see you here. We have no sanctions against each other. We have the whole world. We're all friends. We have friendship and love. Your question.
We came here early in the morning from all over Miami. For some, it was quite a long journey. We are all impressed. I stayed up half the night to see you. Most people who are here now started their spiritual life thanks to you. We are very grateful to you for everything, and we love you very much. We want to say that we love you very much, Dr. Torsunov. Here's the question. It happens in my life that married men are attracted to me, or men who were in some relationships before. And they try to build relationships with me, but after some time they return back to their wives or former women. I've noticed this pattern. And over time I lost the desire to build relationships, because I already project that I know how it will all end. Or maybe these thoughts attract such men, or my behavior. I can't understand the reason, but this pattern exists in my life. That's my question.
I understand you. I understand this question. I have experience with such situations. And to open up this topic to you, I will explain now. A woman attracts those whom she can accept. That's how a woman's psyche is structured. For men, relationships are built like this. A certain energy comes from a woman that attracts someone. and the one who is attracted by it attracts her. A woman notices attention to herself, and she either likes it or doesn't like it. The woman reacts to male attention. And your peculiarity is that the request coming from you is the need for a relationship with a man who understands women well, who is trained to be next to a woman. There are wild men, wild, like wild horses. A Mustang is a wild horse, gallops by itself. There are wild men, and there are domesticated ones, and domesticated men are better, of course, because they are already trained to be next to a woman. But most women react to domesticated men as something foreign, not mine, foreign. It's like a dog sniffing out what's its own and what's not. It barks at strangers, wags its tail at its own. And this energy of a domesticated man has its own scent, the scent of some woman. A woman feels the scent of this man's energy. Even though he's domesticated, he is foreign, not mine, and she rejects him. But for you, wild men are not an option at all. You're afraid of them. They're scary for you. They're wild. You don't know what to expect from them. And therefore, you don't have this mechanism of rejection of domesticated men, because it's very attractive that a man is domesticated, that it's easier with him, that he has already been taught by someone how to build relationships with a woman. So he emanates such domestic energy, not wild. This is where the incorrect thinking lies. That means that this incorrect thinking is also connected with your temperament in general. Because you react very strongly to any roughness which may be in close relationships, it's very difficult for you. And a man needs to be taught for about 5 years before he understands how to behave with a woman. You understand? That means that you need to talk to him, communicate, teach him, get offended at him until he understands how to behave with a woman. It's very difficult for a man to understand this in general, because his psyche is structured completely differently. And it's very difficult for you to negotiate with a person who doesn't understand how to behave with you. And this situation exists because of this. We've just described your situation. Do you agree that this is approximately the case?
You know, I'm trying to understand how I feel about what you're saying now. And I'm starting to replay the tape in my head, so to say, and check my feelings. In fact, all this I've known for a long time, but just couldn't put it in words for myself. And now you've just put into words what I constantly feel towards men.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Now we understand what the problem is. Now we need to understand what to do. We need to understand what to do. You need to learn. It's like when a person, let's say, enters into cold water, then slightly colder water starts to attract, then even colder, and gradually this way they learn to swim in freezing water. You need to learn in exactly the same way to accept this wild male nature. It's actually better than domesticated because it's purer. That means that when a man is alone, even though he's rougher, he's purer, because this warmth that comes from married men is already a certain contamination. That means that a single man is pure by nature. That means that even though he's rough, he's pure. That means that you need to learn to respect and value this pure roughness in a person. And then you'll be able to marry a normal person. You just need to learn to accept this. You need to accept in a man exactly his masculine traits, not feminine ones. Because tenderness, kindness, warmth, these are not masculine energies, these are feminine. You need to accept the masculine in a man. Understand that it's good, it's not bad. This is the reality. A woman is many times stronger than a man. A woman's psyche is stronger than a man's. A woman can handle any man without problems. She just needs to know how. That means that she should simply ignore his masculine indignations. That means to ignore it, pretend that none of this exists and treat him kindly. And when a woman is kind to a man, she immediately finds the key to his heart and goes very deep inside him. And therefore she can handle him right away, because a man is tough only on the outside but soft on the inside. And a woman is the opposite, soft on the outside, tough on the inside. Therefore, a woman is always stronger in relationships than any man. You just need to know your strengths and weaknesses too. Your weakness is that you react strongly to a man's behavior. You need to learn not to react. Toughen up. Learn to accept masculine behavior. Don't pay attention to all male antics. It's all just external. Inside, a man is kind, soft, weak. I can prove this to you very easily. Look, let's take, for example, a little girl, a very little girl, 3 years old. She has very strong behavior. She's so cheerful, so active. That means that she's strong. And a 3-year-old boy, he lies there crying, nose running constantly. So that means that a 2 or 3-year-old boy hasn't yet developed his toughness, you see. And you can see his inner male part. Or take any man you know, ladies, look at his face when he's sleeping. When a woman sleeps, for example, her inner part is visible. She's kind of strong. And a man, when he sleeps, he's like this. He's soft, kind. You understand? When a man sleeps. That's why women like to approach their husband after he's eaten or when he's going to bed. Because he's already relaxed and this tough protective layer, which women don't like, goes away. It's not visible. And small children, boys, they don't have this protective layer. And little girls are like la 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 when they're small. And then all this passes with time. And a young man becomes so strong, tough, so businesslike. And a girl becomes somewhat very unhappy, sensitive, fearful. When they're young. Now let's move on. Let's take an old man. An old man agrees with everything. And old ladies, again, with age, their strength comes out externally. In women, strength comes out externally. And in men, their kindness and calmness become visible. That means that in early childhood a boy is kind, sensitive, and an old man is the same. And a woman in youth is very active. And in old age she's very active. And in between she's sensitive, gentle. This is how the deep nature of a person is hidden. That means that a woman is strong by nature. She's a strong being. A man is weak by nature. And you just need to learn. A man needs to learn to understand that a woman is strong and he shouldn't compete with her. Some men try to break women down, and it turns out that they break themselves down. You shouldn't compete with a woman. You need to be careful with her because she's strong inside. And you shouldn't be afraid of a man because he's weak inside. You just need to ignore his showing off or whatever he's trying to display. It's all just external. And then it's very easy to get married, no problems. You'll see the depth in a man, the deep part, and don't react to external things. That means become resilient. Learn to understand the depth in a man, and he'll immediately become yours. That means that you can easily get used to him. You won't get scared, afraid, or hurt in this case. And then you'll start attracting unmarried men.
Thank you very much. I understood that in this area I have such untrained muscles. And I need to pay attention to this. And actually, to get out of this comfort zone, where everything is already familiar, and start working on myself, on my character. And yes, thank you very much.
This is a very serious topic for women, called comfort zone. Very serious. Women often come to me and say, I can't get married. I immediately ask, do you really want to? She says, well, of course, Dr. Torsunov, I want to get married so much. I say, wonderful. If you want to get married, then you must accept that you'll have to live not as well as you do now. She says, why? I say, because a woman lives best when she's alone with herself. For a woman, the best thing is to live alone with herself and be surrounded by other women. That's just great. And with a man and children, it's such a hassle, you see. Are you ready to accept asceticism practice? Are you ready for the hassle? Are you ready to live in asceticism practice for it to be difficult? If you agree to this, agree to go into battle, then you will get married. If you don't agree, then you'll remain alone, because as soon as someone appears, you feel, oh, not this again. Because a woman immediately sees a man's flaws. They're as clear as day to her. Men don't see women's flaws. They think, how beautiful. Oh, great. I like everything about her. He doesn't see her character. She charms him, and that's it. He can't think straight. She appears, and he loses his ability to think. Like in one song, with a flying gait you came out of paradise and disappeared from sight. But a woman sees everything. She sees what kind of man he is. She understands his character well, sees everything inside, and then she's afraid to marry him. I don't know a single woman who got married easily. All women are afraid, then they get used to the idea, think about it, set themselves up for it. All women are afraid. Men are braver, well, in the best case, of course. Now men are also afraid. They've all become weak too. They're also afraid. I think in America they're very afraid because people in America are very rational, have strong intelligence. They calculate everything. How will I live with this person? How long will we save for a house? How will we work? When will we have children? Or maybe it's too early for me to get married. Is that how it happens there?
When will we divorce? How will we divide everything?
That means that people are very rational, they're very calculating, careful. That's why it's very difficult to create a family. You know, I think specifically for America and Canada, this advice should be given. You need to learn how to be good friends. To get married, to be successful, you need to learn to be friends, to establish friendship with a man. You stick to him and don't let go. That means he tries to break free, but you don't let go of him, you've stuck, and that's it. You stay friends with him, and he gradually gets used to it, until he has no other option. I know one story. A man tried to kick his wife out of the house. He says, "That's it, leave the house." She says, "I won't leave, I'm your wife." "What do you mean you won't leave? I'm kicking you out, leave, I don't want to live with you." She says, "No, I won't leave." He grabbed her hand and started pulling her out. She resisted, holding onto the doorframe with her hands and feet. The husband couldn't get her out. That means she wouldn't leave. And then suddenly he realized that this was his wife. He became powerless and understood that this was his wife. He realized that he would never be able to kick her out. That means you need to stick to him like that. A man gradually understands. The laws there are tough about how to divide property and so on. I don't know. Nothing can be done. That's it. When a person sticks, attaches themselves, he'll have to marry. That's it. He simply has no options, and that's all. This is for America. Of course, I'm exaggerating. It's important to build relationships so that a person feels loyalty and stability, and then gradually he gets used to the relationship. That's the way.
Thank you very much.
You should also understand that you need to learn how to go through this path. Because married men are closer, it's easier to bring them to this idea of family life. They are already kind of prepared for such an outcome. But those who aren't married, it's like trying to saddle a horse. You know, it's the whole story. He's wild. First they throw the harness on him, walk with him on a leash. That means they deceive him, pretending that no one will climb on him, that he shouldn't worry. And then suddenly, unexpectedly, they saddled him. Or there's another scheme. It can be compared to fishing. That means you just cast the fishing rod, there's a worm hanging on the hook, and you also need to scatter a lot of bait. It's called ground bait, which has an amazing aroma. And he's like a fish following the smell. Oh, it smells delicious. Well, what smells so good here? Can't see the ground bait. This worm must be what smells so good. And the fish starts to try it first. It's a big fish. It doesn't suck the worm inside, holds it in its mouth, thinking, "What is this?" Can't understand whether it pricks or tastes good. During this time, you need to carefully pull in one direction, then the other. Pretend like you don't care about it. Well, like a fish, it slowly moves here and there, then slowly swims closer to the shore. That means it doesn't know it's swimming to the shore. It's just swimming nearby, thinking there's nothing to fear. You pretend you don't need this fish, and it comes closer, closer, closer. Then it's impossible to pull out a big fish with just a fishing rod because it will break free immediately. And there's another way. It's called a landing net. You need to scoop it up with a net. Using a landing net means that the man himself says, "Well, I've decided to marry you." Well, you know, he said this just because he was in a good mood. At this moment, you catch him with the net and say, "Well, you promised. You've already decided everything. Why don't you do it then?" And he says, "I don't know. Well, yes, I agree. Let's get married." That's how you need to catch a big fish with a net. First, you're friends, you maintain friendship, then he says, "I think I'll marry you." That's it. Catch him by his word and get married. That's the scheme. The man sitting there with you won't tell anyone.
Thank you very much.
I wish happiness to you. Well, shall we start the actual lecture now? Very good questions. They revealed the topic to some extent. So I'll start slowly. Loneliness. Let's study several aspects of this topic and gradually analyze it. The first very important aspect of loneliness, this aspect is called self-esteem. We need to understand how it works and how to diagnose it. If you don't have a family, where is your sense of self-esteem? Where should you move it to create a family? Let me explain this topic to you. Self-esteem is what emanates from a person. That means it's their effectiveness, their strength, their attractiveness or unattractiveness. It's their charisma, as they say. That means through self-esteem, a person's qualities are manifested. Even if a person, let's say, does nothing, their sense of self-esteem still manifests quality. For example, self-esteem can work towards determining what a person should be in life. For instance, even a small child can be born a leader. It's their nature to be a leader. And when they're born, they look at their parents seriously. They're so serious. That means a small child is born but already has such an important look. What's the matter? Who are you? What do you want? That means they're born a boss. They're a small child, but already a boss. They have such a sense of self-esteem. And you can't behave differently with them. They can either be the boss or have nothing to do with you at all. Either I'm the boss with you or I'm nobody. And if I have to be a boss, then I start a war, declare war on you, and will fight for my rights to be the boss. This is the nature of a leader. When, let's say, a child is born and they have the nature of a scientist, this small child looks like a sage. One looks at everyone, observes what kind of people they are, what they do. They observe everyone from the sidelines. If a child has the nature of a businessman, then the child is happy to see everyone, loves everyone, wants to be friends with everyone, and communicate. And they're the life and soul of the party. Everyone looks at them, they smile at everyone. That means that this child is already building relationships, loves everyone, like businessmen do. This is how self-esteem works. You understand? This is a person's charisma, their attractiveness, and this self-esteem exists in the space of time. You understand? When self-esteem is directly connected to a person's heart, then the person becomes beautiful and attractive. A person's self-esteem must be connected to their heart. In other words, a person must be themselves, and then they become beautiful. A person must be themselves, and then they become beautiful. Now let's imagine that self-esteem is located inside such a space of one's personality. Self-esteem can move upward in a person. Then it is called pride. It can go downward. This is called humiliation. Self-esteem can move forward. This is called fussiness or living in passion. And self-esteem can move backward. This is called living in degradation or living in a state of disappointment. When a person becomes enchanted, for example, they believe in the future. When a person becomes disappointed, one believes in the past and remembers the past. They think everything remained in their past for them. When a person values themselves too highly in relation to others, this is called pride. Such a person becomes unpleasant. It's difficult to be around them. And a person who is, on the contrary, humiliated, exhausted, they value themselves lower than others, such a person also becomes unpleasant. All lonely people, every single one of them, their self-esteem is not in the middle. This needs to be clearly understood. For some, it's down below. This is most common. That means that a person doesn't value themselves. They're humiliated. They think this is how they should live. They might say, maybe I'm guilty of this, maybe guilty of that. What do you think I'm guilty of? That means they always think they're guilty of something. It turns out they have no self-esteem. It has gone down. There are people whose self-esteem has gone upward. They think, I disagree with this and with this and with this. Let's say I'm giving a lecture, and such a person thinks, do I agree with this or not? In this case, self-esteem has gone upward. That means that a person can't simply and calmly perceive something. They must either agree or disagree. That means they're not capable of perceiving life humbly and calmly. That means they're constantly in conflict in any life situation. They need to constantly show off, prove their point. That means conflict is ongoing. This indicates pride. Self-esteem has gone upward. When self-esteem moves forward, a person can't stop. They need to rush somewhere. For example, a person sits in a car and thinks, when will I arrive at my destination? They arrive and think, when will I get inside my house? They get inside. When will I turn on the TV? They turn on the TV. When will they all get shot? Or on the contrary, when will they get married? And so they're always living in the future. That means they're always running away from the present. When they arrive, they think, when will I get to work? They get to work. When will work end? They finish work. When will I get home? They get home. When will I eat? They start eating, thinking, when will I watch a movie? And so on. That means one is constantly in the future. And when a person constantly lives in the future, they're not beautiful. They're very tense, and nobody needs such a person. It's even very difficult to talk with them, because such people can't even look into your eyes. When people live in the future, they can't even simply sit next to you and look into your eyes, because they have no time. They're very busy, you see. They need to rush somewhere. And people who live in the past, they also can't look into your eyes, because they don't believe that this person can understand them, accept them. That means they're disappointed. They don't believe in people. And overall, all these four categories of people are not beautiful, because beauty lies in connecting self-esteem with a person's heart. This is called sincerity or simplicity or being oneself. That means to connect with yourself, accept your fate, accept yourself. This is another topic that needs to be understood, that if a person doesn't accept their fate, they run to the future in their fate thinking tomorrow will be better, therefore I live in tomorrow. The second way not to accept is to become disappointed in one's fate, living in the past. The third way not to accept is to rebel against fate. This is pride. And the fourth way of non-acceptance is when one has already broken down before their fate. They can't do anything with it. All these four types of problems always create loneliness. Moreover, one should know that when relationships are created between a man and a woman, the most important thing in it is to take care of each other. Only when one cares for their close person does the psyche stand in the middle. A person should joyfully and voluntarily take care of others. Otherwise, forced care means humiliation. When one thinks, I take care of you, but you don't take care of me, this is pride. When a person being in a relationship waits for something, for example, they created a family, wondering when they'll buy an apartment, this means living in the future. Or let's say they got married and know that they probably will never buy an apartment because they won't have that much money. And this is called living in the past. That means people have fallen into degradation. In other words, even in personal life, people can lose themselves. That means their self-esteem was working normally, then they got married and lost themselves in relationships. But even if we talk about relationships between men and women, in these relationships there is always such a concept as the vector of love. The vector of love is such a thing where one person always enjoys. They like being with the other person more. One always gets more, meaning one likes the other more. For example, you liked me more than I liked you, you see. Let's say the vector of love always works in one direction. And this always happens in all relationships. The direction is unknown. Either the man loves the woman more, or the woman loves the man more. It's unknown in which direction the vector of love will work. But it's always like this, meaning the vector of love is always there. That means someone's love is stronger, either the man's or the woman's. And this always leads to the fact that the person who loves more becomes humiliated and unpleasant to some degree. And the person who gives love, or who is loved, becomes proud and inaccessible. That means their attractiveness seems to grow, but it becomes inaccessible. It's like, something you want but can't get. That means this system of alienation from each other as a result of the very action of the energy of love is a stumbling block for all people who start relationships. Well, when people have lived together for about 7-8 years, this somehow gets resolved, because the swing first went in one direction, then in the other, and somehow they've already gotten used to each other. But when a family is being created, the one who gives love always starts to become proud and tries to suppress the person who loves them. This is connected to the fact that always, for both men and women, love, the very idea of love, is strongly connected to exploitation. For example, a woman thinks that if a man loves her, he must satisfy all her tiniest emotions and always be exactly as she wants. This means he loves her, and for a man this means losing himself. It's humiliating if he doesn't do it voluntarily. Now what about man? His desire is to subjugate the woman. He thinks that if a woman loves him, she should always behave submissively before him and constantly agree with everything, always being very obedient. But this obedient woman who agrees with everything loses herself, becomes unattractive, and he starts to boss her around and gets angry with her. Similarly, a man who consistently satisfies a woman's whims stops being attractive to her, and this is a paradox. You see, on one hand, we want to make a person like this, but on the other hand, when they become like this, they become uninteresting, you understand? Therefore, it turns into a vicious circle. So when people try to do something with their loved one, to reshape them somehow, to do something with them, it always ends in divorce. Because when we start doing this, both people's self-esteem shifts. One becomes proud, the other becomes humiliated. Or they both become proud, and then a war starts between them about who will win, who will break whom. And still, it all ends in loneliness, because this is not the solution. There is only one solution. It's working on yourself and the ability to accept a person's character and take care of them voluntarily. When a person voluntarily begins to care for someone, their self-esteem becomes balanced, you see, and they become beautiful. Look, let's say, for some reason I don't want to give you a lecture today, and I have two options for behavior. The first option is to create tension with you, because I don't want to, and you're kind of forcing me. You see, this is pride. The second option, I don't want to give lectures, so I'm behaving like this. Hello, I'm glad to see you all. This is humiliation, and that's all. That means that when I don't want to do anything for you, when I voluntarily don't want to do it, I have two options. Either I become proud, or I become humiliated. Well, both these options mean I become unattractive. Such a lecture is not needed by anyone. We say goodbye and leave. Why? Because such a lecture is not needed. The person doesn't bring us happiness. Such a person has an incorrect attitude. But if a person has the right attitude, they want to help, they want to do something for people, then it's always pleasant and it creates love. It's exactly the same in family life, you see. It needs to be done, but in family life there's one problem. For example, I voluntarily came to see you. I'm very happy. Some of you I've never seen before. There are some cities that I don't even know. I was surprised when I saw that such a city exists. What is it called?
Twimazi, probably.
Yes, Tumazi, I think there are many of you sitting there at the lecture also cheerful. That means it's very, very inspiring. I want it myself. I like it. It's great. Thank you very much. So this is such a format when many, many people from different cities gather, though I can't see everyone at once. But most importantly, you don't need to go anywhere. So it's just great. Thank you. I'm so inspired. Everything that's happening now is very pleasant thanks to Helen, who sits smiling all the time during lectures. Therefore, I think you're not bored while talking with me, that you're more or less okay, because I have a good attitude. But, you see, in family life it's different. There are different expectations. That means a person enters into relationships not to do something, not to take care of someone, but they always enter into personal relationships with only one goal, to get something. Because the desire is very strong, you see, a woman has been waiting all the time for when she'll have children, when she'll have protection, when she'll have an apartment, when she'll stop working. She waited, and there he appeared, the object of her desires. Naturally, at first, she is very happy. Thank you, yes, I'll think about marriage, I'll think about it. But when she's already married, she wants fulfillment of her expectations. That means she immediately attacks her husband. Look at me this way, talk to me this way. When shall we have children? Give me an apartment. Why is the salary so small? Because she was waiting for all this, so now give it. You married me for this purpose, to give me all this, right? Isn't that so? Well, he doesn't know about it. He thinks that he married her, on the contrary, to cuddle her body, to kiss her, to enjoy her, and so that everything would be good, that she would cook, and that beloved children would be born. He had a completely different idea of marriage, and now he's completely shocked. He didn't expect that he would have to fulfill all her whims, bring lots and lots of money, and provide her with something constantly new. He didn't expect it, you see. He had a completely different idea. And it turns out people's expectations from each other are absolutely different. As a result, when they start to understand this, from this moment loneliness begins. And then, when a person gets psychological trauma for the first time after divorce, then they don't know how to create a family in the future. Some people, of course, naively think everything will work out with the next person, but then it gets even worse, because one has less devoutness for the next family. You've already destroyed one once, and so on. So the idea is this. You see, there are many reasons in our life for loneliness. Many reasons why we should be lonely. There's also another main reason, which is called immaturity. So, for example, an underdeveloped man. There are 3 stages of male development and 3 stages of female development. The first stage of male development is called a couch potato, that's what I call it. Or we can identify him as neither fish nor fowl. I don't know whether they understand what I'm talking about in America. That means a man who is completely useless, like a child, lazy, not awakened as a man, irresponsible. And by the way, this is the first stage of development for all men. All men are like this at first. It's good if he doesn't drink, because there are those who drink. That's even worse. Not only is he not awakened, he also constantly drinks alcohol. His brain is not working properly. This is the first stage of a man. All men are like this at first. He's not awakened. It's good if he doesn't drink. That's the best option. At the first stage, a woman is called the princess. That means she is just a dreamer. She doesn't strain herself much in life. Everything is fine as it is. Parents support her. Everything is excellent. She's beautiful. She is very sensitive. She dreams about a good person. She keeps dreaming, and that's all. Doesn't do anything else. Of course, she can do something like study, maybe work somewhere, but overall she's such a dreamer. The second stage for men and women is roughly the same. That means when a man gets himself going, he becomes a workaholic. He's busy, constantly tense. Usually men get going when they're already married. It takes a woman about 5 years to get a man going. It's a whole feat. Well, when he's gotten going, another problem starts because he's never home. He's constantly working, constantly under tension, can't rest, can't relax. He's constantly tense, and only at the third stage of male development does he become a man. That means he starts to respect his wife, starts working on himself, and raises children. That means he becomes a person, hopefully not by 60 years old. That means he gradually gets going, develops, and becomes a person. A woman at the second stage becomes like a man. She also starts working hard and studying hard. She becomes independent. In the second stage, she becomes independent. She feels self-reliant. But who needs an independent, self-reliant wife? A man wants a dependent wife. Why would someone want an independent wife? Interestingly, during the first stage, women tend to get married more quickly. Some women manage to get married in the first stage. Of course, it will be problematic for a man to cope with such a wife. But the second stage isn't easier either. At this stage, she might say, "Cook for yourself, I'm going to work." That means she simply likes to work. She enjoys developing herself, participating in clubs, engaging in activities, and working. She likes everything. She likes everything except cooking or having children. She might say, have them yourself if you need them. She becomes fully emancipated now. That's the second stage. In the third stage, she finally becomes a woman. It's good if this happens at, say, 35, as she may still be able to give birth. But some women only reach this stage at 50, saying, I'm ready to have children now. But she's already 50. By then, the man might say, but I'm not ready anymore. Because he's already 60, he responds to her, I'm not ready anymore, sorry. In the past, people developed faster. A woman matured by 25, a man by 30, and somehow everything seemed to align. Now people develop more slowly because they don't live actively. How can a person develop? To develop, one needs to engage in activities. For example, I spent all my childhood outside, playing football, hockey, always doing something. I lived an active life. We didn't have computers in my childhood. There were no mobile phones back then. This kind of lifestyle encouraged constructive development. But today's children live in a virtual world, not in the real one. In this virtual life, there is no willpower or effort, zero willpower efforts. It's virtual life, not real. You understand? They can kill anyone in the virtual world, but if faced with a real criminal, they will be scared out of themselves. They will be absolutely terrified. There's a big difference between fighting in a computer video game and facing real-life situations. This is the problem. People don't truly live in the moment and therefore don't develop. They develop very slowly. As civilization progresses, people do less. This hinders their development. This is a significant problem, and marriages are now happening later and later. When I was young, people typically married between 20 and 25 years old. Now the average age for marriage is between 28 and 35. I think in the United States it's even later. How to give birth then? This leads to late pregnancies, which have become natural. It's a common trend everywhere. Loneliness also stems from this cultural shift. It's the same everywhere now. It's a culture of underdeveloped individuals. To address this, you need to compromise. A woman should understand that she will have to help develop her husband. A man should realize that once he gets married, he will have to help his wife develop. This requires asceticism practices. However, nobody wants to practice asceticism. Everyone wants everything ready-made, but nothing in life comes ready-made. People are underdeveloped, and their underdevelopment comes in many forms. It's good if someone is a couch potato. It means they grew up in a stable family where people don't drink or smoke. But imagine if a man or woman comes from a poorly developed and poorly educated family. A man might turn to alcohol and become an alcoholic, while a woman falls into a deep depression. Women in depression often start smoking heavily. Heavy smoking damages hormonal functions for at least several years. It will take a long time to recover and restore the ability to give birth. That means loneliness again, because how can you live with an alcoholic? How can someone live with a woman who can't have children, is constantly depressed, and isn't open to communication? It's incredibly difficult to live with such a person. Loneliness is deeply tied to personal development. This is the key point I emphasize to everyone. Don't get caught up thinking about where your self-esteem stands right now. These things fall into place naturally. The root cause of loneliness is underdevelopment. By underdevelopment, I don't mean lacking advanced degrees or physical prowess. It's about moral and emotional underdevelopment. That means a person simply lacks spiritual strength and the ability to tolerate a close person. Let's take a look together. Women sometimes make mistakes in judging character and get deceived. Let's consider men, for example. When a woman begins to interact with a man, it's normal to be a bit capricious around him. Don't be afraid. It's normal. Be a little capricious and observe his reaction. If you see that he immediately becomes stressed or annoyed when you act a little capricious, it's a clear sign of his underdevelopment. If a man can't tolerate women's emotions, he's simply underdeveloped. He won't be able to tolerate you. Then you'll communicate with him for 5 years, while he insists on a casual relationship for years. He'll tell you, let's just date. It's easier for me this way. This means he can't live together. He's underdeveloped. You just wasted your time. On the other hand, there's another problem. Given that most men are underdeveloped, maybe it's good to date. You help him develop further. Staying in a relationship for another several years could lead to marriage. It may be the only viable solution now because it's difficult to find a developed partner. Because when a man is developed, there are already 5 or 10 candidates for him. It's a rare case. A developed woman is also a rare case because she gets married right away. She is in high demand. Generally, people are underdeveloped and they encounter other underdeveloped people. We need to help each other develop to prepare for family life. That's another topic altogether, though. Often people don't want to work on creating a family. They don't want to help each other develop towards family life in relationships. They don't want to develop together. They want to get something ready-made. They believe in a prince on a white horse or a flawless princess. This is all nonsense. Such unrealistic thinking also leads to loneliness. Underdevelopment sometimes becomes extreme. It can deteriorate into degradation, manifesting in harmful habits, severe depression, or mental issues. Such men may be uncontrollable or very easily offended. Or they can be very angry or pathologically lazy when they simply can't work. A woman may get married to a man who simply can't work. Nowadays, underdevelopment in men is manifested as follows. It's difficult for men to work. Since it's difficult for men to work, they tell their wife, "Why are you sitting at home? I'm working, and you're sitting at home. Come on, earn money for yourself, and I'll earn for myself." This is humiliating for a woman because it undermines the very reason for her to get married. She marries specifically to be able to stay at home. She does not get married to have to work to earn money. That's why she got married in the first place. She could have earned money by herself otherwise. Why marry at all then? She got married and she still had to earn money. This undermines the very reason women marry. Moreover, she has to bear children and take care of them, as well as to make sure everyone feels comfortable in personal relationships. An underdeveloped man fails to recognize that a woman provides love, care, and children, and bears the immense responsibility of raising them. A woman is not naturally suited for work outside the home. In the Western societies, this is not even discussed anymore. Everyone works, both men and women. Children are sometimes sent somewhere for upbringing from an early age so that both parents can work. Such is the system of life now. For many women, tolerating a lazy man who cannot work is unbearable. Similarly, for a man, tolerating a woman who is very tough is unbearable. It is unbearable for a man to cope with a woman who is cooler than him, or completely independent, or doesn't want to take care of him, dismissively offering him to hire a maid. Why would he need such a wife? It's very difficult to live like this. Modern societal norms foster loneliness. This is a pessimistic section of our lecture on this topic. There is a happy, positive exception, however. There is a different way forward. A different way forward lies in what we are doing here with you. Through activities like listening to lectures, doing sports and exercises, and practicing healthy lifestyle methods, we take a different way forward. We learn to pray and help others. These activities bring us closer to a happy and fulfilling personal life. Self-improvement and working on yourself are the most reliable guarantees of happiness. Let's explore different types of loneliness. Consider humiliation, for example, particularly in women. In one scenario, a woman feels humiliated when her partner tells her that he found someone else. She waited for him, opened the door, but in the end, lost him. This represents a kind of female humiliation. A woman needs to be strong in a relationship with a man. She must always remain a mystery. He should always feel that she is unattainable to him. A woman should set herself up for a man this way. Then he will always love her. If she becomes too dependent on him, waiting for him, feeling sad and longing for her partner, she loses the relationship. Another scenario is an immoral one, when people attempt to build relationships with someone but cannot remain faithful in principle. Such situations also end in heartbreak. There's a song about this. That means you got involved with a person who was initially underdeveloped and not honest in relationships. The third type of loneliness arises when a person falls deeply in love and their vector of love becomes so strong that there's no chance for another person to be near. The vector of love is so intense that it pulls all the love out of the other person. I studied this phenomenon by examining how people fall in love at different ages. Interestingly, young people's falling in love is usually more or less mutual. They don't hog the covers because they have a lot of energy for being in love. They believe things will be good. They don't have bitter experiences. But with age, the older people get, the stronger their thirst to have someone close becomes. Their love becomes more forceful, selfish, and intense. Therefore, with age, single people usually have only one option to get married. It's when someone falls in love with them. But they don't agree with this. They want to love themselves. They say, I want to love myself. If a woman loves someone, a man doesn't love her back. If someone loves her, she doesn't want him because it's unpleasant with him. I don't like him. In such cases, one needs to sacrifice, meaning agree to building a relationship if the other person is good. If they're a normal person who is developing well, the goal is to move forward together in life. If the person is good, then I will be patient and get used to our relationship. This vector means that the other person loves you strongly, then gradually it all calms down and mutuality appears slowly. You need to wait around 1, 2, 3 years, and you will fall in love too. However, loneliness in older age often stems from the expectation of mutual feelings. But you will never get it, because mutual love mainly happens in youth. As we age, it's usually one person who loves while the other does not. This kind of loneliness, born from intense love, is what this song is about. She fell deeply in love, and that was it. Goodbye, he disappeared without a trace. This represents the scenario with a strong vector of love. She got involved with the wrong person. He started to cheat, and she could not accept it. The second scenario is a humiliated woman. Darling, I was very sad. He found another one and left, because no man wants a humiliated woman by his side. The third scenario involves falling too deeply in love. The fourth is when people fail to understand that when families are created and relationships are formed, selfishness and discord are inherent in relationships. People don't want it. They think, I want harmony. Why do I need discord? People often separate because of discord. They simply don't understand it's inevitable. That's how relationships are structured. They are inherently selfish. Being in mutual love often involves torment because there's a lot of selfishness, and people argue. How do they argue? For instance, after reconciling, one might feel tormented and retaliate. This is a classic pattern. Then they say, we're incompatible. The truth is, everything is fine. They are compatible. They just desire too much enjoyment in life, too much love from one another. They don't want to serve each other or accept the other. They don't want to give or sacrifice themselves. They want to enjoy, and that's why they argue. Today, I met someone and asked, how's your life together? Do you argue? She replied, of course we argue, Dr. Torsunov. Of course we do. And she smiled as she walked away. Everything's fine. This shows the person listens to lectures attentively. She understands that arguing is normal. Everyone argues. It's part of life. Everything is good, we argue, and we make up. Because that's how life is structured. There's nothing you can do about it. If you want to avoid arguing entirely, you'd need to be a saint. One must also understand the price of not arguing. It's not that simple. We're not even discussing bad fate here or things like loneliness as a result of the seal on the heart. Bad fate can also happen, as it turns out. There's also fate. Some people really have a fate with the seal of loneliness, which requires enormous effort. For a woman with the seal of loneliness, consistent effort is essential. First, she must connect with nature. This is what the song Nature Has No Bad Weather symbolizes. First, she needs to become filled and become beautiful in her relationship with nature. Then she must cultivate kindness in relationships with people, because female kindness creates a family through her heart. That means she needs to learn to love people, to be very kind to everyone, and to take care of everyone. This shakes off the energy of loneliness and removes it from the heart. The first root of loneliness in a woman is powerlessness. That means she's powerless. She can't even go to meet someone. She simply lacks strength to meet someone. So, the first step for a woman is movement. She should start running in nature, breathing fresh air, planting trees, doing something in nature. The second stage is relationships with people. She must take care of people, love them. These are serious asceticism practices for a woman, because she wants to be taken care of, but instead of receiving care, she must give it to someone. At our festival, one teacher created a women's club to help other women. She herself was lonely and she took care of women. After 2 festivals where she took care of women, she arrived at the 3rd one married. This is the right approach to life. By taking care of others, she became beautiful as a result. When she became beautiful, men immediately noticed and lined up. She started choosing whom she wanted. Please understand there is a sequence. This I have a seal of loneliness is not a defect mark. This is not a defect or quality mark. An astrologist says, you have a seal of loneliness. This is incorrect thinking. There is no such thing as the seal of loneliness. It is simply a sign of a volume of work. For a woman, this indicates just that, a volume of work. Weakness, lack of strength, a strong feeling of comfort in loneliness, unwillingness to change, unwillingness to make an effort to live with someone, all underlie loneliness. There can also be a subconscious desire or strong fear of male nature or the masculine principle. All these stem from the same condition in a woman, from her weakness. In this case, she strengthens herself through the energy of nature and by caring for others. With this, a woman becomes beautiful and transforms her life. The second option for a woman is the opposite. Some women are overly social, overworking or studying excessively, even maintaining relationships with men. But she can't build a family because creating a family requires being focused on a family. This means she must genuinely want a family and not just focus on self-development, work, or casual relationships with men. A woman is like a river. Where she flows, that's where she arrives. If she flows toward work, it means her life will center on work. Now, ladies, please test yourselves. Where have you directed your flow? Toward work or studies? That's where your life will be, in work or studies. You won't find family life because a woman is like a river. She cannot flow in two directions at once. If her energy flows into work, studies, or self-development, that's where she'll live. However, if she directs herself toward personal life, she will still work and study. It's impossible to live without work, but she'll have different thoughts. If you aspire to have a family, this intention will reflect in your appearance and mood. A woman's essence is deeply tied to her mood. A woman's mood determines what she attracts. If you focus on seducing men purely for enjoyment, they will have fun with you and enjoy your company, but they won't marry you. But when you want a family, you'll look at men differently. You will no longer be drawn or find attractive those men who are seeking only fun. Instead, you'll be interested in serious men. However, meeting such men isn't easy. You need to be very modest. You will need to be modest, but also smile quietly at the same time. Modest, but smiling subtly. This means you must carry yourself with modesty, a gentle smile, and a demeanor that shows you're family-oriented, not someone seeking casual relationships. To be family-oriented doesn't mean simply staying at home where nobody will see you. If you are not out in the world, no one will notice you. It's not simple for a woman to set herself up for marriage. It requires strong intent and focus. If a woman prioritizes work, comfort, or her personal convenience, the chances for marriage are zero. Some women leave their husbands and there's coldness in the heart. This is a separate issue. When a woman leaves, coldness in her heart sets in. Coldness in her heart means she simply cannot find anyone because there should be warmth for her to attract a man. If there's coldness after she left, then she needs to make amends and pray to cleanse her heart from this step. Only then can attraction and connection return. This is the third aspect of loneliness. Sometimes loneliness comes as a form of punishment. It means a woman is punished. It might stem from past life when she left someone in previous life, for instance, and she can't marry in this life. Then she thinks, what is this? I can't even meet anyone. This means she is punished for her previous life. What can be done? Start by helping others and caring for others. This will help overcome your fate. To sum up, coldness in the heart is one issue. Another issue is casual relationships. When a woman engages in relationships without commitment a lot with men, she risks losing her sense of self. She can no longer get married. Because she becomes easily accessible, she cannot shield herself from male energy. A mere beckoning can lead her to jump into bed simply because she liked the attention. However, a man will rarely marry a woman who is so easily accessible because he quickly loses interest. Men need to be thoroughly warmed up through consistent courtship and pursuit for a long time to want to get married. But if he sees she's easily accessible, he loses interest. Why would he need her? Now let's move to the next important point. The next important point is common interests. You must focus on your personal development because if you don't grow, you'll attract someone equally undeveloped. Who wants an undeveloped person? No one. Undeveloped people are uninteresting. Another significant factor is faith. Suppose you have chosen a particular faith, but you don't resonate with the nature or energy of your chosen faith. As a result, you might find yourself a close person from a different faith. Here, you need to develop the strength to accept and respect another's faith without being fanatical about your own. This is a separate topic. People don't always find a close person within their faith and instead bond with someone from another faith because they like certain qualities. For example, someone might be born and raised in a Muslim country. They like the Muslim appearance. But if they convert to Christianity, for example, what should they do? They end up marrying a Muslim woman, resulting in a relationship between people of different faiths. Or the opposite happens. A person grows up in a Christian country but becomes a Muslim. They find themselves drawn to Christian women. And again, the result is different faiths. Living together with someone of a different faith requires a very developed person. It requires seeing God very deeply. Most people can only see God through the lens of their own faith. They don't see the bigger picture. To live harmoniously, you need the strength and the ability to accept another faith. This requires correct thinking. That means you need to be able to love a person regardless of their faith, to be able to love and build relationships correctly. Thankfully here, people of different faiths gather together and love each other. This is truly wonderful. It happens so rarely in our world, and not only for people of different faiths to come together, but also from different countries. Still, one should know that a person must love their homeland and be ready to protect it. Each country has its interests, which often conflict and lead to enmity between countries. A person should always be loyal to their country. This is righteousness, this is correct. At the same time, we as people need to be able to love each other, regardless of whether countries are at war with each other or not. Enmity between countries, like enmity between people, is simply the result of karma's influence. Let me explain now. When time begins to affect a person negatively at the individual level, the first sign is an inner feeling that something is wrong, something's not right. Then comes the second stage of time's influence. Not only one feels something's wrong inside, but feels sick. The third stage of negative time influence manifests in a serious illness, and the fourth stage results in incurable diseases or cancer. Similarly, in families, the first stage is feeling like strangers. The second stage is thinking we are not compatible with each other. The third stage involves hostility, viewing your partner as an enemy and feeling disappointed. The fourth stage is divorce. Between countries, the stages are similar. In the first stage, we view ourselves as different. In the second stage, we think we're good and they're bad. In the third stage, we become enemies. The fourth stage is war. This is how time works. It simply erodes peace, while people remain progressive, intelligent, and developed. Even as connections break between countries, families, or even within the self, intelligent people always strive to maintain these connections. They understand the profound value of preserving relationships and will always maintain connections. The essence of correct thinking is to love everyone regardless of differences or conflicting interests. Let's consider faith as an example. A person should love God within their own faith. This does not mean they must love God in another's faith. They must deeply love God only in their faith. But they must deeply respect the faith of others. When one respects and admires other faiths, peace follows. Such thinking defeats time. It allows one to love their own faith and at the same time deeply respect and appreciate what belongs to others. This balance is the mark of correct thinking. Without such thinking, a person will always waver, leaning too far in one direction or another. Similarly, in a family, one must greatly value their sense of self-esteem. A man, for example, embodies a divine principle. Please note this. That means within every man is both his individual character and the divine qualities. I once described a man who is like a couch potato. This man is like that, but there is divine in him, which is what a woman loves in him. She loves his courage, bravery, and responsibility. All these traits are gifts from God. What do we love in a person? We love exactly the divine. Therefore, when a person doesn't believe in God and doesn't love God, they will hardly be able to preserve a family. Because family is preserved only through faith in the divine in a person. A woman, by her very nature, is also a divine being. She is also human. Her vulnerability, sensitivity, tendency to get tired easily, and even her moments of laziness reflect her humanity. But she is a divine being. This means that she possesses the ability to love deeply, remain faithful, and serve others with great care and devotion. These unique qualities of a woman come from God, you understand? God encompasses both feminine and masculine nature. As people grow as individuals, they strive to see more of the divine in one another rather than the human. We notice more of the divine in one another. By doing so, they overcome loneliness in their own hearts and relationships, and even in the hearts of those close to them. These are the three circles of life. First, you must overcome loneliness in your own heart, then loneliness in relationships, and lastly, loneliness in another person. This breaks and destroys the vicious circle of loneliness. So you see, we have made a small overview, a general exploration of loneliness. There are different types of loneliness. It's evident that degraded people are not needed by anyone. They will always be lonely because they are not developed. For example, here is a familiar scenario, perhaps not an American one, but common in Russia, a man stuck in degradation. It's clear that in such a state, there can be no family or family life. Some people ask me, how can one live with an alcoholic? It is only possible at a distance, even if in the same apartment, then also at a distance. How can one live with a person who is degrading? Or how can one live with a person who is in deep depression? Or if they're developing a mental illness, how can one live in harmony with a drug addict? It's impossible. It's simply impossible to live with a person who is degrading. Harmony means relationships. It's impossible to build relationships with a degraded person. Distance becomes the only solution. Loneliness becomes a medicine. In this context, loneliness is not a defeat. It's a form of medicine. By distancing yourself, you can heal a loved one. They start to sober up and realize that they're losing something. Setting conditions is vital. Some women set conditions. A man agrees, but once she returns, he degrades again. This means you have to leave again. You have to do this several times until his head starts working properly and real change occurs. In essence, loneliness is not always bad. The ability to remain independent in relationships is a rare and valuable gift. In fact, a person avoids being lonely thanks to this ability. When people become overly attached to each other, they often end up creating conflicts, fighting, and draining each other emotionally. Excessive attachment depletes people. Their batteries drain very quickly. True self-sufficiency comes from the ability to find satisfaction within yourself and rely more on God rather than on others. This is not loneliness. This is called self-sufficiency. This is not selfishness, but a correct understanding of life. A person must first fill themselves with happiness before they can share it with others. If they cannot fill themselves with happiness and always demand happiness from a close person, conflicts begin. This is the only reason for conflicts. However, if a person first fills themselves and then shares happiness with their close person, or keeps their distance when they're not filled and have nothing to give, conflicts are avoided. We should maintain the distance in relationships that we can handle and endure. Sometimes the distance can be far and sometimes close, depending on the strength and karma's impact. Sometimes it's a good period of fate and we're together having fun and everything is great. Sometimes it's a bad period, then we need to maintain some distance in our relationships. I've already shared quite a bit with you now, and perhaps your heads are spinning. Let's now move on to questions, but let's keep them focused on the lecture topic, not on what's bothering you. If anyone has questions about the lecture, let's be disciplined and stick to the topic. Who has a question on the lecture topic? Nizhny Novgorod.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
I have a question about the lecture. You mentioned that a woman should be strong in relationships. Could you explain in more detail what it means to be strong in relationships?
Being strong in relationships for a woman means several things. First, the ability to tolerate male shortcomings. Tolerating means maintaining a bit of distance from a man without expecting too much from him. For instance, what are the main mistakes women make? A man is naturally rough. Let's say he comes home. She expects that as soon as he sees her, he'll faint from joy on the spot. Women expect him to walk in and immediately fall unconscious from joy. A woman expects this, thinking a man will behave this way. But men are naturally slower. When he comes home from work, he is still processing. He hasn't even realized that he's home yet. A man is naturally slower, and a woman shouldn't expect him to engage immediately. Well, wait a little, he'll get himself going and understand that he's home, then gradually he'll notice you. There's even a joke about this. A man came home tired from work, and his wife, wearing a gas mask, asked, "How do I look today?" He stared at her and responded, "Did you pluck your eyebrows or something?" He didn't understand at all what happened. Another joke. A man comes home from work, she's wearing her old wedding dress, and asks him, "How do you like my new dress?" She was joking because he had seen it before at their wedding. He responds, "Beautiful, I've never seen you wear it before." And she thinks, "Oh my God, you see?" Moments like these illustrate the point. Men simply forget what dress their wives wore at the wedding, while women remember such things. So the first rule is, don't be surprised by anything in a relationship with a man. A woman's correct attitude is not to be surprised that he's a man. For instance, when mopping the floor, he may only clean the middle and skip the corners. Or he might slice cucumbers into 2 pieces rather than small ones. He can't put his socks in one place, he needs to scatter them around, because he came home and ran to the bathroom. So he takes off his socks along the way, one near the doorway, the other near the toilet. You understand? This isn't carelessness. This is male nature. He's naturally like this. Men focus on moving from point A to point B. He only sees the point, sees himself at point A and at point B. That's all. He goes from one room to another. He only remembers that he needs to get there. That's how his psyche works. Meanwhile, when a woman goes from point A to point B, she sees everything around her. She notices everything in between, and simultaneously understands that she's going to point B. A man doesn't see anything around, he only sees point A and point B. Men and women think completely differently. When a man passes by a woman on his way to point B, she thinks, "What a jerk, he doesn't love me." You should understand, he's just a man. It's not that he doesn't love you, he just has point B in his consciousness. He sees the goal and he doesn't see obstacles. He has a completely different nature, and his mind works differently. The first rule for a woman, for a strong woman, is to tolerate and deeply understand men's shortcomings. Did you write it down? Did you understand the first rule of a strong woman? The second rule: close relationships with your husband are possible, but not all the time. A close relationship is only possible at certain times. Don't try to build close relationships with him all the time. A man comes home from work. A woman throws herself on his neck and expects closeness right away. He can't engage in relationships immediately. A man engages in relationships only in certain life situations. The first option is when he has eaten, right after a meal. When he's finished eating, a woman can work on building close relationships. Her time has come. The second option is when he's lying down and falling asleep. At this time, a close relationship is possible, meaning he can listen to you, understand, accept, love, and everything else. The third option is when he's giving you flowers. He's set up for you, he's giving flowers, and it's time for close relationships, and so on. But if he's occupied with something and you come to initiate closeness with him, he can't engage quickly. This isn't rejection. He simply has a different nature. In contrast, women can multitask effortlessly, talking on the phone, watching the children, and cooking at the same time. You see, for her it's normal, everything together. Because it's her nature, she is very active. A woman's mind is very active. She can do everything at once. A woman can drink tea, listen to a lecture, and at the same time chat with her friend. She does 3 actions simultaneously and everything is fine, you see. But if a man is drinking tea, it means he's not listening to the lecture. If he's talking to his girlfriend, he can't drink tea at that time. That means that he can't do everything at once, you understand? Because his mind works differently. He needs to do one thing at a time. At work, he can even do 2 things at once. But this means he can't do anything else. He might have spent his whole life learning to do these 2 things and finally learned to do it, but now he can't do anything else. His consciousness has such nature. You need to enter into a relationship with a man very gently and very powerfully at the same time. A woman should understand that if a woman treats a man very kindly, she breaks through his protective energy. So it is very difficult for a woman to deal with a man's demagogy. His showing off, demagogy, vulgarity, all of this is male protective energy, and she finds it disgusting. A woman should treat a man very kindly, with such powerful kindness, such a strong, kind feeling and heartfeltness. She says, "My dear," and immediately starts communicating closely and deeply. Not about herself, but about him. If she does this, she immediately slips through the protective energy layer and immediately gets into the zone of male kindness, heartiness, and calmness. If a woman can break through the protective layer, quickly penetrate through it, it means she's a strong woman who understands how to behave with a man. This applies to women everywhere, even at work. Let's say there's a male boss sitting in the office and says, "Come in." A woman comes in, sits next to him and says, "Mr. John?" She looks at him kindly and it makes him relax, you understand? So it's such a strong feminine position. "Mr. John, do you want anything?" Such a powerful, kind position right away. But if she comes in and she is afraid, "Mr. John, what is it? Why did you invite me?" Then he will act strictly like a man. "I invited you to..." Would any woman like that? But if she's strong as a woman, sits next to him and says, "What do you want, Mr. John? I'm listening to you." Then he immediately has a different attitude. She broke through his protective layer. That doesn't mean that she's flirting with him. She's just acting very feminine, and therefore a man can't quarrel or conflict with her. She knows that he wants to find her, but she came so positively with a smile. "I'm listening to you, Mr. John." And he's like, "You know we have such an issue." He needs to switch the relationship, but he can't, because she has already established a kind relationship. He can't berate her because she has a strong feminine position. And he's like, "Well, okay, I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll let you know. And what I wanted to say today, I'll write to you in chat." That means he can't say it right now because she has a strong feminine position. This is how it works. This is what a strong woman means. She deeply understands male nature. And she behaves very strongly with him. Such women are highly valued, you see. They get married easily. A strong feminine position means she's not afraid of men. She knows that it's all external. The same goes for a strong masculine position. A strong masculine position is when a man doesn't try to probe a woman's inner nature, but he satisfies her external desires in a very powerful way. A strong masculine position is when, yes, I'm listening to you, good afternoon, I'm glad to see you, please come in, how are you? So that means he behaves very carefully and gently with a woman, but inside he's calm and firm. When a woman sees that a man understands her, she immediately starts being capricious. She likes being understood and starts releasing a flow of emotions right away. And the man at this time becomes like a huge, impregnable rock. He tells her, yes, I understand you. He's so calm and nothing stirs inside him. He reacts so calmly and the woman thinks, oh, he's such a good person, he's so calm. And he simply doesn't take it deeply, doesn't take these emotions seriously, but just treats her kindly. But if a man is weak, he starts to delve into every detail of her emotions. He takes everything emotionally, and then it turns out, I can't handle this. He gets tired of relationships because he's weak. He doesn't understand how to behave properly with a woman. So you need to be gentle and kind on one hand, but on the other hand, stay calm and not take emotions seriously. Because a woman herself doesn't take it seriously. She says, why did you react so seriously when I called you names yesterday and said I don't love you? I just did it because I was in a bad mood. She tells him, why are you taking it so seriously? I don't take it seriously myself. But if the woman herself doesn't take it seriously, then why should the man take it seriously? So he should be intelligent in this regard and understand that a woman wants to build emotional relationships with him. She wants to relax with a man in a relationship. She can't relax with her boss. And what does it mean for a woman to relax? It means to act a little silly, to be a little capricious, to blame someone. Well, that means she can do something that no matter what she does, he accepts it all. To her, that means he loves her, you see? The same with a man. He wouldn't talk to his boss like that, but he comes home as the boss. And he starts putting on a business-like appearance that he's the most reasonable. Now I'll tell you how I understand the situation in the world. He shares his views with his wife because there's no one else to share with. And how should the wife behave? She shouldn't tell him, be quiet. Who are you to explain the world situation here? She should sit and pretend that she is listening. Got it, women? Otherwise you might go crazy listening to all this. You can think about your own things, but say to him, yes, my dear, yes, you shouldn't pay attention to what he says. And he says, only you understand me. You see, only you understand me. You can, by the way, do it externally. Oh, what a situation. But at the same time, you don't even have to listen to what he's saying, and everyone will be happy. You understand? This means proper behavior, because women can't stand men's demagogy at all. How can anyone stand it at all? A woman is very sensitive to demagogy. She can't stand it. It might be some kind of extended logic there. Oh my God. So she already doesn't understand what he's telling her. And you don't need to try too hard. He just needs your participation. And he might say in the end, of course you don't understand this, you don't get it, but thank you for listening. You understand? He himself understands that she doesn't get it. But he does this simply to show that he's so smart. He has no other purpose. Similarly, a woman with all these emotions, she just wants relationships and that's all. It's not that she wants to dump negativity on him, as some men think. She just wants to be understood, that's all. Well, okay, you need to nod. I had such a case. One woman came to me and started talking. She was very energetic and excited. She came for a personal consultation. I used to do them when I had the strength. She came and started talking, and I thought that I would need to say something. I was thinking about what to say, preparing, while giving her time. She talked for half an hour, and then suddenly she relaxed. Dr. Torsunov, you are the best conversationalist in the world. Thank you for the consultation. I'm leaving. I'm so grateful to you. So I didn't say anything at all. I don't know. I don't understand what kind of consultation it was, but she was very happy. She said everything she thought and left. Apparently someone before couldn't listen to her. That means that she simply needed someone to listen to her. Any other questions about loneliness? I've explained about strength, how to be strong, Theodosia. Well, go ahead, turn on the microphone. You need to come closer to the computer. The microphone seems weak. Please sit down so we can see you. Right now we only see your braid.
Dr. Torsunov, I don't have problems with external loneliness as such. I have a very large family. I have 3 children, a husband, parents. Everything seems good. But sometimes there's this feeling that I want to feel unity. Before, there were situations when my husband would be away from family for a week or two, like 5 years ago. Now this doesn't happen anymore. We live in a very tight space. At work, it's the same situation. I don't feel this unity. I practically never get it. So I start having a tantrum first. And at night, I have this wild feeling of loneliness that makes me feel paralyzed. As if there's absolutely no one else in the world.
You have an issue with your microphone. It keeps turning on and off. We hear you sometimes and sometimes we don't. It's okay, it's fine. I understood everything in general. I'll explain it to you now. This is what we call incorrect thinking. Women and men, you should understand that there is no unity in personal life. It only occurs at very late stages of relationships. There is no unity in personal life because there is very strong selfishness. We'll talk about this more in loneliness in personal life. This will be a separate discussion. You see, the problem is that people in personal life are very selfishly oriented. And opening your heart to someone close is a very difficult thing. Like in that song, Silver Weddings, Never Fading Fire, Silver Weddings, Soulful Conversation. This means that people are already very highly developed. They are capable of communicating soul to soul. This indicates a very high level of development. Most people don't have such ability to communicate closely with their spouse. Therefore, people must understand that the ability for close relationships, a woman should develop with women and a man with men. And also in spiritual life through spiritual relationships. Don't think that you can develop deep, heartfelt relationships with your significant other specifically in terms of unity of hearts. There's unity of bodies, yes. Unity of interests, yes. Unity of family feelings, yes. But to open your hearts to each other can only be done with friends. Don't get confused. You need friends to whom you can easily open your heart. And you need mentors in spiritual life, you see. And if you learn to open your heart with your husband, it means you have a very strong and developed family. Well, I don't feel that your family is that developed. You have incorrect thinking.
I want to ask something else. I lack solitude. I want to distance myself from my family for some period of time.
This is called fatigue. I understand. 3 children, husband, close distances. Yes, this is a very important topic for women especially, for men too, but especially for women. Women get tired. That means they constantly give in the family. Woman gives to children, gives to husband, gives to the dog, gives energy to everyone. You see, she gets tired from all of this. And a woman rests through relationships with other women. She needs to chat and communicate with women. That's where she recovers and builds up strength. A woman builds up strength when she attends spiritual programs. A woman builds up strength in nature like all people do. A man builds up strength in games with men, in some male activities. He builds up strength in nature and also builds up strength at spiritual events. But people often try to rest in the family without these relationships. This is impossible. Or some women confuse heartfelt relationships with work. They run to work to rest there, but there is no rest there. So a woman should engage in social activities. She can rest there. Social activity means when you simply do something for people selflessly, when you do something for people from your heart. This is a rest for a woman. But if she comes to work, she gets even more tired there. There are business relationships. And she does it because she's running away from home. It's better for women to rest in some clubs or groups, not at work. Well, maybe you like your work. Let's say you have a favorite occupation. That's also good. But work won't give quality rest for a woman. Friends, clubs, education. When a woman listens to lectures, she rests very well because it's interesting. She rests during this process. You need to learn how to rest. You're simply getting tired. A woman in the family only gets depleted. 3 children, husband, they only deplete. So let's move forward. Canada, let's hear from someone I haven't seen yet. I'm asking to get to know you.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. Thank you for the lecture. Maria has a question.
Thank you too for joining, for not forgetting about me.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. My name is Maria.
We can't hear you.
Maria, we can't hear you. Could you come closer?
We can't hear you. Maybe the microphone is turned off.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. We're very happy to see and hear you. My name is Maria. I'm very grateful for your lectures and for the help you provide us. I don't even know how to ask my question. It just happened that I just don't know how to live further.
Tell me what happened.
Somehow everything in life has fallen apart, and whatever I try to do, nothing works out. I have many thoughts, many plans, but I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how to start anything. I pray. I'm trying to get on the path of spiritual development. It happened somehow that about 8 years ago my husband left me. And I waited for a very long time. I tried to build relationships nevertheless. I tried to save my marriage. But nothing worked out. My son is very good. He's 29 years old. He got married now and lives on his own. But I don't understand what's going on with my daughter. I can't understand what's going on with her at all. She's 25 years old. It turned out that she took this whole situation very seriously. When my marriage was actually falling apart, either because of that or for some other reasons, several years ago, she refused to communicate with me.
Let's finish now, because you've already given me several topics.
I understand. I have just had so much stuff going on.
I already understand everything. I have enough information. I already understood everything. I can see it. I'm a bit different from other psychologists because I see the situation deeper right away, and therefore I don't need that many arguments. I already understood everything. I can tell you now what you need to do. The first thing you need to do now is to start listening to me, because you're worried right now, and when a person is worried, they don't hear. You need to engage in a relationship with me. You shouldn't worry, but listen to me. Maybe you should sit down, because standing might make it harder to listen. I'll ask you questions if needed. Here, sit down and calm down.
Thank you very much.
And listen. The first thing you need to understand is that your self-esteem has gone down and moved a bit backward. That means that you're now thinking about the past, about what happened before. The past affects you more. It's kind of difficult for you to be engaged in the present, and you've been thinking wrong for a long time. In relationships with your husband, you always tried to please him, to serve. But you didn't understand that you were humiliated during this time, and nobody needs a humiliated person, you understand? You simply have an Eastern nature. Eastern people tend to serve. But often they confuse service with humiliation. A person can serve very dignifiedly, and it's not easy to do. Western people tend to be more independent, while Eastern people are more dependent. But often dependency turns into humiliation. That's why Eastern women very often humiliate themselves, while Eastern men often take pride in themselves. This is classic. But in the West, it's the opposite. Often women take pride in themselves, while men, on the contrary, humiliate themselves. It is important for you to understand that right now you shouldn't think about how to be successful, because that's the next step, the next level. You understand? Now you need to focus on the relationship with yourself. That means that the key to success for you is filling yourself up. A person should fill themselves with nature. What I noticed right away is that you've been going through a difficult period for about 6 years now, related to decreased health. You lack nature's energy. You lack the energy of nature. Your work ability is decreased, your health is deteriorating, and you shouldn't try to look for work now, because who needs a weak person? People see that you're weakened and they don't hire you. You need to become stronger. For this, you need to run outdoors, wish happiness to everyone, breathe fresh air, and do exercises. That means you need to fill yourself up. You see, you need to start with filling up your life. When you start filling yourself up, your self-esteem will slowly begin to move towards the center, getting back to its place. This means you'll become an attractive person. Next, you need to learn to help other people. You shouldn't serve in humiliation, but serve joyfully. You understand? Serve with dignity. Not like, oh, let me do everything for you right now. That's a humiliated state. But rather, would you like ice cream? Would you like a cake? So, you should do it very dignifiedly. Got it? People should feel good around you. It's not that you're running around them shaking on your hind legs. It's that they feel really good to be with you. You need to learn to be dignified. Because this is what people need, to see dignified people around them. Now imagine I'm going to give you a lecture like this, trying to serve you. Will you like it or not? Look. Now I'm just going to make you laugh. I'm going to give you a lecture now. It will be so interesting. You'll like it so much. I want to say so much there. Will you like this style? Terrible, right? You see, a person has to be dignified. Otherwise, no one wants to listen to such a person. That means never behave as if you're miserable or tormented. You shouldn't behave like this. You have to fill yourself up. This is your responsibility. No one will help you with this, not a single person. All people are depleted to some degree. You need to fill yourself up now. You need to fill yourself up by listening to lectures. There are 2 stages of filling up. The first stage is like a baby sucking milk and filling up. And the second stage is like a baby smiling at everyone and rejoicing when they're already full. You understand? That means the first stage of filling up is just listening to lectures and just walking in nature, loving nature. And the second stage of filling up is doing something good for people when you already have something to give. And not just walking in nature, but performing asceticism practice, running, or let's say, digging a garden. That means moving, leading an active lifestyle in nature, plus active relationships with people. But this is the second stage. If you don't have strength, you will serve in humiliation. And no one needs such service. Therefore, the first stage is always when a person is alone with themselves. You understand? This is called not loneliness, but self-sufficiency. Striving for self-sufficiency is very important. If a person is self-sufficient, they are never lonely. For example, the sun is self-sufficient, and it always shines for everyone. And therefore, it's always in relationships. It's never lonely. The sun has many who love it. But if a person tries to serve and they have no sun inside, then everyone runs away from them. This is your mistake. At this point, you need to learn not how to take care of people, not to seek relationships, not to seek success, but to seek self-sufficiency. You should learn to be filled up, feel happiness and satisfaction alone with yourself. This is the answer to the first question. Second question. Any person, when they get married, can't give as much attention to their parents anymore. This is what happened with your son, and this is normal. You understand this yourself, because we are all selfish, you see. When a child is small, they depend on their mother, and therefore love her. Then they depend on their wife, so they love their wife, and they can't communicate with their mother as often anymore. Regarding your daughter, she is in a difficult period of life. This difficult period started 3 years ago and will end in a year and a half. It's going to be hard on her all this time. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can help her through prayer, but help yourself first, because you can't help her now. You are depleted. I've answered all your questions.
Dr. Torsunov, do you know what made me suffer so much? The fact that somehow I was still taking care of my son, and this gave me a lot of strength. Well, since the situation with my husband is like this, clearly, I can't take care of him anymore, and I can't do anything for him. I tried to help him too. I tried my best to make efforts to save this marriage. It didn't work out. Just literally, maybe less than a month ago, I finally realized that I can't do anything here, no matter what efforts I make.
I have an answer. It's like a second lecture when we communicate. I'm giving a lecture about how to live properly, and you're giving a lecture about your life. I have enough information. I can tell you what to do about this. Please understand that the main mistake of all women is that they seek service where it's very difficult to achieve. This is classic. For example, a woman wants to take care of her son who is married. This is incorrect thinking. He's already gone. He's already a torn piece. You won't be able to take care of him because his wife takes care of him. You just need to accept this. And why does a woman think this way? Why does she want to take care of her son? Because she doesn't know that a woman needs to learn to take care of women. That means a woman should build very strong relationships with friends, you understand? Because taking care of a husband or a son doesn't fill you up, but depletes your strength. Even though it brings more happiness to a woman, taking care of a husband, for example, or a son, brings more happiness to a woman, but it depletes rather than fills. Try to understand this, because this sort of care will drain your strength. It won't give you strength, but will ultimately take it away. If you take care of women, which is less pleasant, then it will give you strength. Therefore, women should rely on their friends and relationships, not on relatives. Because relatives strongly impact our fate. Today we can take care of them, tomorrow we can't, because fate can separate us from them. Or a conflict can start with relatives, so you can't take care of them. Therefore, you have incorrect thinking. You need to learn taking care of your friends and serving God. And then you will be self-sufficient. I'll repeat again. The first stage is nature. Fill yourself up. On the second stage, you should learn to serve other people, which means friends and God. And the third stage are relatives. Don't skip steps.
I tried to offer help to other people, but nobody wanted anything.
Okay, once again, I'll explain to you again.
I feel useless.
Let me explain again. Let's say I'm feeling very useless, helpless, and unhappy, but decided to give you a lecture. I hope you'll like it. Will you continue listening? No.
Yes, no. I want to listen to you.
But I am completely different, you understand? This morning I was praying for 2 hours, and I got filled with enormous power to give this lecture. That's why I'm telling you, live properly, fill yourself up first, and then you will be able to serve. That's what I'm telling you about. You're not hearing me because you're under severe stress, and right now you just want to complain to me. But we don't have time for this. You can complain to me for an hour and nothing will change for anyone. You understand? You just need to hear me because I'm telling you for the third time what you need to do.
Thank you very much, Dr. Torsunov.
Thank you. Thank you and be happy. At the next lecture in a week on Saturday, I will ask you, did you spend time in nature? Did you serve women? Did you feel joy? Become self-sufficient? Start smiling? I will keep track of you.
Thank you so much. And is a park considered nature too? Is that okay?
Yes, excellent. The park is great.
Thank you very much.
You can ask. I haven't talked to you yet.
Hello, Dr. Torsunov. I have a question. How do I maintain distance if I share an apartment with an alcoholic? And moreover, he strongly demands attention. That means that I have to be near him all the time.
You see, I looked at your life and saw that he's not that much of an alcoholic. You understand? There are different stages. Let's say a man works a lot, gets tired, he doesn't know how to rest, and he drinks because of this. This is your case. It's not like he's completely degraded. I specifically played you that song so you would understand what an alcoholic means. This is not your case. You understand? Your man is just very tired, and this is his way of resting. And he demands attention and relationships a lot because he gets very tired, a drinking person with whom it's impossible to live. That's what is described in the song. That's such a case when you can't live together anymore. But in your case, he's a normal guy. He works, gets tired, and drinks from fatigue. You see, he's not degraded. All women want an ideal man. They want him to be perfect. But your fate is to have a man like that, and you want the perfect one. And that's why you're complaining to me. Dr. Torsunov, why isn't he perfect? I want someone perfect, but you will make him perfect. So you need to distance yourself from him a little bit, then come closer a little bit. You should serve and pray to God to purify your husband, because a woman is either a blessing force or a cursing force. Are you now a blessing force for your husband or not?
For some time I can be a blessing force, but when it lasts for a week or more.
Well, my dear, this is your fate. That means you were drinking in your past life and now you got your punishment for this. Now you must overcome this punishment, eliminate it. And choosing the right distance means not paying attention to his condition, but accepting fate. Just be strict with him on one hand, and on the other hand, you should believe in him. What's your husband's name?
Andrew.
Dear Andrew, you are my teetotaler, 100%. I see you as a teetotaler in the future, that's it. This is my attitude towards you. And the fact that you're drinking now, this is just temporary. You're just slippery and smelly now because you're tired from work, but I know that soon you'll be soft and fluffy. This is the right thinking, you see, women? And he will become like that, because you are either a blessing or a cursing force. But I see now that you're a cursing force for him, not a blessing. For example, yesterday you had a fight with him. You behaved very emotionally. What do you think? Will he drink less because of this? On the contrary, he probably got drunk today or already got drunk yesterday after you fought.
It's been many days already, and today we had a conflict.
Well, and he drinks accordingly because of this. Because he can't handle the mental tension, that's why I'm telling you. First, fill yourself up from within. Distance yourself a bit from the person to make life easier. Fill yourself up with nature, socializing with friends. Look at that woman with a braid, how happy she is. Hug her now, even from the other side. Do you feel better? Tell me.
Yes.
So hug with women. There is no need to hug your Andrew for now. That means you need to fill yourself up with women first, you see. You should fill yourself up with women, learn to love women first, and then later fill yourself up to inspire your husband. And then when he becomes better, you will fill yourself up with him. But you want to get what is not possible at the moment. You have to serve him, believe in him, invest in him, pray for him, and keep your distance. Because he's now embodying your bad fate. This will last for another 2.5 years.
How to understand keep distance?
Keeping distance means not expecting anything from him. Like one of my acquaintances came to his mentor and said, I don't expect anything from my wife anymore. I don't want anything from women that I used to want. I'm used to everything. Maybe I should become a monk? And the mentor told him, no, now your happy family life will only begin. And that's exactly what happened. He stopped expecting things from his wife, and the relationship improved. You see, you expect from him, but you should expect from your friend. What's the name of the woman next to you?
Oksana.
You should expect happiness from Oksana. Dear Oksana, my good friend, can I hug you? I'm feeling so bad. That's it, women. Expect happiness from your friends. not from your husband, but from friends. Fill each other up, serve each other, take care of each other, and then it will be easier for you. Your husband will drain you. He won't fill you up, but you want him to fill you up. But he's the embodiment of your past life. You can't even imagine what you did there in your past life.
Yes, probably.
But I can see it, so for me it's not probably. That's why I'm telling you to just endure. Well, it's easier to endure at a distance. That's what I'm talking about. Distance means not expecting anything. It's not that you physically move away from him. He pulls you closer, but you move away. That's what I'm talking about expectations, you understand? About expectations. And don't blame your fate. You have a good husband. He is a responsible, serious, and faithful person. He has so many good qualities. You just don't see the divine in him. You see the human in him. This means the family is moving towards destruction. If you learn to see the divine in a person, then he will also see the divine in you. Your question.
I have such a question. My life is now turning out in such a way that I have no one. I can't find anyone for myself. The truth is, I don't like anyone and no one likes me. And because of this, of course, I have a question. Is everything really okay? And I would like to ask you about my characteristics that you will see and recommendations for proper development. So that everything develops and improves right for me to build harmonious family relationships later.
There are two characteristics. The first characteristic is that you understand very well that you are beautiful, and therefore you don't agree to end up with just some fool. The thing is that in a woman, all the best comes out on the surface, while in a man, all the best is inside. And therefore it's very hard for a woman to see a genuinely good man, especially if a woman values herself highly. It's very difficult for her in principle. She needs an ideal right away, you see, and this is very difficult to achieve in this world. This is the first problem. So I'm not against you having an ideal man. You got upset right away. It's okay. I agree that you should have an ideal person. Everything's fine. But for this to happen, you need to understand, for a woman to have an ideal person, she must be very kind to people. She must be very generous in giving her relationships, but you, on the contrary, are very stingy and lonely in relationships with people, and this is the root of your loneliness. To gain feminine power, you must force yourself to serve women, serve relatives. That means you shouldn't stay in your comfortable solitude. This desire for comfort, staying alone, has enormous power in you. Don't stay in comfortable solitude, but give yourself to people. Try with all your might. Do something for everyone every day. If there's no possibility for physical communication, write messages to everyone. I love you. You're my dear. Take care of everyone around you. Try to be very active in terms of relationships, and then you will get married very soon, 100%. There's no doubt about it. We're having a contest for who can show me something more interesting. So you, from Sevastopol, are showing a book. The book wins. Now, Sevastopol, your question.
I'm very happy to have the opportunity to talk to you. And I have this question. My husband and I separated about a year ago. He left. It was his initiative.
No, that's not how it is. A person can't just leave for no reason. You lost yourself. Your self-esteem became low, and that's why he left. And also depression started to affect your consciousness.
But the depression didn't come from nowhere. We started to live together, developing in one direction in spiritual practice. But then, after 2 years, he somehow lost interest.
Let me explain. Look, when a man gets involved in family life, he always degrades a bit. Because when a man is enjoying a woman, he loses himself. It's always like this. Before marriage, a man is spiritually strong. But when he starts living with a woman, he relaxes. And relaxation for a man always causes degradation. Therefore, women should know that the first stage of family life for a man is always accompanied by him losing himself a little. He becomes lazy, weak-willed, and a bit aggressive. It's natural for a man first to lose himself in a relationship with a woman because he's enjoying it. You see? But you were waiting for an ideal. You wanted an ideal right away. This is incorrect thinking. Let's move on.
I noticed that he started returning to the state he was in before we met. I began to feel that this was his true taste.
Oh no, that's foolish. That's foolish. That means you rejected his divine nature and started to think that his human nature is the main thing in him and the divine is not the main. This is a big mistake in relationships. This is the key. I repeat again. You don't even want to listen to me now. Now listen. Just understand that there is a root of evil. The root of evil is not in him. He has his evil and you have yours. A person must understand their own. Otherwise, they won't be able to handle the situation. That means the situation might repeat itself in your next relationships and the next ones. You idealize a person, and you want the perfect relationship with him. That's where you're wrong. You have to believe in a person, not idealize him, but believe in him. And wait until he becomes what you believe in. Work on helping him become that way. See the purity in him. For example, the person you lived with, he is naturally like that. What divine qualities does he have? He is a very sincere person by nature. This sincerity attracted you at first. He is an honest person. You see, this honesty attracted you. He is hardworking, a goal-oriented person, and this attracted you. But then when he started living with you, as he felt a woman's presence, he relaxed. For example, when a woman takes a child in her arms, what happens to them? They are very active by nature, but when a woman takes a child in her arms, they relax right away. That means when someone comes in contact with feminine nature, they always relax. The same happens with a man. For example, he stands next to a woman and immediately relaxes. And this is a man's first reaction to family life. It's hard to get himself together and take control, because that's how feminine nature always affects a man. But because you idealize relationships and you have very strong internal demands, you couldn't accept this. As a result, you lost a good person. This is what you should think about now, not that he's bad. We are all bad. Do you think I'm good? Now I'll scold you, then I'll be bad too.
Yes, indeed. I couldn't find this faith in myself, the inspiration to believe in him. My eyes really became empty, and he started to feel this insincerity. That's why he filed for divorce. But what now? Do I just need to make this conclusion not to idealize future relationships? Or maybe there's something I can do to fix it. Although, most likely, there's nothing that can be done.
That's fate, but you could fix it if you wanted to. You can still easily save this relationship because you became the cause of divorce, not him. But that's not important now. You can fix these relationships or not these. It all depends on your capabilities. Let's go back to your past. Let's look at your father. Look at him carefully. A girl's fate often manifests very strongly through her father, but it's very difficult to see it by yourself. Look, does his excessive principles, demands on people help him bring people closer to him?
No, of course not. Well, he drinks.
And this is already the result of such behavior, you understand? Well, you are exactly the same, meaning an inability to serve. When a person can't serve people, they demand a lot from them and behave very principled with them. This means that they lack the inner ability to serve. You need to learn to serve people now. Don't think about personal life. You need to learn to care for everyone, to serve. Then you will become more tolerant and learn to see the divine in people. But first you need to learn to see the divine in women, and only then in men, because it's harder to see it in men. If you want him back, it's quite possible according to your fate. You can get him back in no time. You just have to make amends internally, change your attitude towards him and start communicating. And you know, he's a compliant person, quite reasonable. He will think about it and try to build a relationship once again, because he's not as uncompromising as you are. He's just tired of you. You've created a wall. Well, how long can one live next to a wall? He lived for 6 months, got tired and couldn't continue anymore. He just needs to see. He's that kind of person. He needs to see a future in relationships. He looks ahead and what's there? Nothing. Emptiness. That's why he left. He didn't leave because he wanted to cheat or anything. He simply left because he was trying to shake you up, trying to bring you back into the relationship. But you idealized everything, and that's why you burned out.
I just stopped seeing the meaning in it too.
So that's it. You stopped seeing it. You stopped seeing it, not him. He just reacted to all of this. This is called idealization of a person. That means you didn't deify him, didn't try to see the divine in him and serve him, but simply confused a person with God. The thing is that a person isn't a God. A person should be with God, you see? That means a man should always be very strong and developed, but a man is a human. He can sometimes be weak, sometimes strong. Fate impacts him. Sometimes he gets sick. Sometimes he can break down. He's human, but there's divine in him. And you should cultivate this divine in him with your faith. This means hard efforts for a woman. Of course, she wants to see the divine in a man. Then she's happy. But you need to use your faith, as in the quote, take out the gold from the dirt and wash it. So that means you need to try to build a man through your faith. Believe that he will be good, and then he will become good. It's inevitable.
Well, actually, we dated for 3 years. Well, how to say, he courted me for some time. And at first, he was such a person that I couldn't even imagine that I would marry him. Well, he loved me so much that he gave up everything completely. He quit drinking, smoking, using drugs, left his friends, stopped gambling.
Super, imagine that. And then he got what he wanted and relaxed. Everything starts great, of course. Well, there's no point in believing in this. It's only like this at first. You see, it's only like this at first. You should understand it. And then it all calms down, is forgotten, and something else should become the foundation of the relationship. Now you need to win him back. Well, get him back.
He already has another woman. Maybe it's not worth it.
Then that's it. That's all. The train has left the station. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much, and see you soon.